is going on, everybody? It's Modded Warfare here. Welcome back to another PS3 tutorial. In this tutorial, I'm going to be showing you guys how to fully jailbreak your PS3 from start to finish on firmware version 4.89 or lower. And if there's any future firmware versions that come out, like 4.90 or 4.91 in future, and custom firmware comes out for it, I will update the title to say that it supports that firmware version as well. But at the time of recording, it's 4.89 or lower. So you can check your firmware version by heading into the settings and scrolling down to system settings. And then from there, you can go down to system information, and you can see it says your firmware version right there. Mine is on 4.89. Again, you can follow this video if anywhere from 4.82 up to 4.89 or whatever the firmware version is in the title of the video. So if the title of the video says 4.90 or 4.91, then you can follow it on those higher firmwares as well. So anyway, so once you've confirmed that you're on the correct firmware version, you want to head up to the top of the settings here and make sure automatic updates is turned off so you don't accidentally ever update to a higher firmware. And the next thing we want to do is check to make sure that your PS3 is compatible with custom firmware so that you can do the full jailbreak. Now we can do this by making sure that your PS3 is connected to the internet, and then we're going to scroll over to the network settings and do a internet search. And we're going to search for the following website right here, http://ps3exploit.com. So if we head to that website, give it a few seconds here to load up, and we'll select the top option here. And then what you've got here is the ps3exploit.com website. So you can see here it says custom firmware compatible 4.89. Again, if you're watching this video in the future and it's higher, it's like 4.90 or 4.91. If we get future updates, then you'll be able to follow it on that firmware version as well. Whatever firmware version it says right here, then it is compatible up to that firmware version. So what we're going to do is head up to the BG toolset and select main site. So we're going to select that option, wait for this to load. This can take a little while here to load, but there we go. We're loading up here. So just give it a few seconds to initialize everything. Then we get it beeping twice. So now it says exploit initialization complete, toolset ready. We can click OK. And now if we head to system manager, and again, give it a few seconds. Don't worry if this fails, by the way. If you get an error message here, it doesn't matter at this stage. So as you can see here, it says custom firmware compatible PS3 with a green tick next to it. So if you get that tick, then that means that your PS3 is compatible with custom firmware. So the PS3s that are compatible are the fat model PS3s and some of the slim model PS3s, but there are some newer model slims that are not compatible with the custom firmware, and super slims are currently not compatible with the custom firmware either. So if you have a super slim or a slim that's too new of a model, and therefore you don't get the compatible PS3, you're not going to be able to follow this and do the full jailbreak. But what you can do instead is you can use the hen exploit with the hybrid firmware, which is another exploit that gives you very similar functionality to custom firmware. So I recommend that if your PS3 is not compatible with the custom firmware here, then you should follow my guide on how to do the hen exploit instead, and you'll still be able to exploit your PS3 just in a different way. So I'll have that video linked on screen here and down in the video description. But if you do get the green tick, then that means you can do the full jailbreak here, the full custom firmware, and you can continue following this video. So what we want to do now is just bookmark this page. So if we press triangle and go down to bookmarks, my bookmarks, and add to your bookmarks. So we're just going to add that right there. Then we're just going to press triangle and go down to tools. And then in tools, you want to go to homepage, and you want to select use a blank page for the home page and click OK. And then we're just going to close out of the browser. Then we're just going to open up the internet browser, and it should open up into a blank page. And then from there, we're going to press triangle. We're going to go to tools. We're going to go to delete cookies and say yes. And then press triangle again, go to tools, go down to delete the search history and say yes, and then triangle, go to tools, go down to delete the cache, and again say yes, and then triangle, tools, and go down and delete the authentication information. and then just close out of the browser again. Now, the reason we're doing this is to make the browser run as lightweight as possible so that you run into less errors. You minimize your chance of running into errors while trying to exploit the system with the web browser. So that's why you want to do that. So what we need to do now is switch on over to the computer and download a couple of things. So switching over to the computer, we do need to download quite a few things here, but don't worry, I'll walk you through everything throughout the tutorial here. So firstly, we want to download the custom firmware for 4.89 by EvilNat from PSX Place. So if we scroll down and download the latest version right here, there's also a version for broken Blu-ray drives that you can download if you have a broken Blu-ray drive. But we're going to go ahead here and download the regular version. Then we also want to download an MD5 checker, so we'll download the English version of that. We also want Rufus to format our USB drive, so just download the portable version of Rufus. And then finally, we also want to download a program called PS3 Tools. So we're going to go to the code and download that from GitHub as a zip file right here. Now, in order to run this script, you are going to need Python version 2.7 installed as well. So if you head to Python downloads, again, all download links will be in the video description. You just want to make sure you download Python version 2.7, not version 3, version 2.7, and download it right there. So once you have that all downloaded, we are all set on the computer. So first thing we need to do here is get yourself a USB drive and plug it into your computer. And we need to format that USB drive in FAT32 format using the MBR partition scheme. So to do that, we're going to use Rufus. So I'm going to right click and run Rufus as administrator. I'm then going to check the box to list USB hard drives and then select your USB drive from the device list right here. Once you have your USB drive selected, change the boot selection to non-bootable, and then make sure the partition scheme is set to MBR. Then you want to make sure the file system down here is set to FAT32. It doesn't matter if it's large FAT32 or just regular FAT32, just make sure it is set to FAT32, and then click Start and click OK, and that will reformat the drive. Obviously, make sure you back up any data on the USB drive before formatting it, because formatting it does erase the drive. So now that we've done that, we can go ahead and check to make sure that formatted. So there we go. If we right click on the USB and go to properties, you can see the file system says FAT32. So if we go in here, we can delete these two files that Rufus creates on the USB and get rid of those. And we are all set. So all we need to do is eject that USB drive and plug it into our PS3. Okay, so now that we're back on the PS3, we're going to go back into the internet browser again, back onto that blank page, and we've cleared all of our cookies and all of that information. So we're now going to press triangle and go to our bookmarks, my bookmarks, and PS3 toolset. So we're going to load that up. And of course, it'll have to reinitialize everything. Okay, so from here, we can click OK and head to the system manager again. Okay, there we go. I'm just hiding my system info here. So all we're going to do now is head to flash memory up here, click it with X, and then underneath you'll get the save flash memory backup. You want to select that option, and then we're going to select the USB drive. So obviously make sure your USB drive is plugged into the PS3 in the rightmost USB port, preferably. Also, make sure you don't have any other USB devices plugged into the PS3 during this time. So we're going to select dev_USB and then select save, and that will save a backup of your PS3's flash to the USB drive. And the reason that we're doing this is so that we have a backup just in case anything goes wrong during the jailbreaking process. If you end up corrupting your flash, then you'll have a backup that you can always restore if it comes to that. Hopefully it won't though. Most cases everything goes fine, but it's always good to have a backup just in case. So once you've backed up your flash, we're going to close out of that little window. And now we can switch back over to the computer to verify that that flash was backed up successfully. So switching back over to the computer, you're going to plug in that USB drive back into your computer and check on the USB drive, and you should have this dump.hex file. And we're just going to copy that over to our desktop. So we now have a backup of our PS3's flash on our computer. So we want to verify that that flash was backed up successfully. So to do this, we're going to use the PS3 Tools program. So we're going to open up PS3 Tools, and we're just going to extract the folder to our desktop. And you also want to make sure you have Python version 2.7 installed. So if you don't have Python installed, make sure you install it. You can install it for all users and just install to the default location and get Python installed. Okay, and there you go, complete. The Python 2.7.17 installer is complete. We can click finish. And now we can go into PS3 Tools folder, and you want to go to PS3 Checker. And then what you want to do here is drag the dump file into the folder. So it's in the same folder as PS3 Checker. Then you want to drag the dump.hex file over this bat file called drag and drop your dump here, and then let go. And it will do all of the checks. And as you can see here, it says checks completed, total number of checks 155, number of dangers 0, number of warnings 0. That's what you want to see. If you get 00 there, then you have a perfect backup of your flash and nothing went wrong. Sometimes it's okay to get a few warnings, but the dangers are the ones you want to avoid. Make sure you don't have any dangers. If you do have any dangers, then you'll have to go back and back up the flash to the USB again and keep doing it until you get 0 dangers. Once you have 0 dangers, that means you have a good backup of your flash. So we can copy that back out to our desktop now, and we know we have a good backup. Finally, you want to go back into the USB drive and delete the dump from the USB. And that's fine because you've got a backup of it on the computer. Keep the backup on your computer. Always have a backup kept on your computer somewhere just in case. But delete the one from the USB drive and eject the USB drive and plug it back into your PS3. Okay, so switching back over to the PS3 again, what we want to do is head to Flash Memory Patch, select this option, and then we're going to download the patch file. So select that option. And then it's going to say, where do you want to download the file to? We want to select the USB drive, so dev_USB, and then save, and let it download that file. Okay, and it says it is done. Once it says it's done, we can close. Then we're going to select load patch from file. And we're going to select our USB 0. So expand this little box next to USB 0. And then go down and select the no FSM _patch _4.89.bin and load. Okay, there we go. That is done. Loaded file recommended. Now we're going to close that. And now we're going to go to Flash Memory Patch. And we're going to select the bottom option now, that is apply the loaded patch. So select that option. So patching the PS3 memory can brick your console. It should never be done casually. There's no way to pause or cancel the patching process beyond this confirmation dialog. Are you sure you want to continue? So again, this is up to you. There is a risk, but again, we did back up a copy of our flash, a good backup of our flash in case anything goes wrong. So we're going to say yes to apply the loaded patch, but that is why we took a backup. So yeah, now we just wait for this to continue. Okay, so once it finishes, you want to go to the log and just see if it says everything was successful. You want to see the completed without errors, completed without errors. And as you can see, the patching operations were successful. So with that, we can now close out of here and we need to reboot our PS3. So hold down the power button on the controller, the PS button, and then turn off the system and say yes. And the reason we need to do this is that it doesn't really apply the patch until you reboot. So we need to reboot to get our custom syscalls, which will then allow us to install our custom firmware. Okay, so once the PS3 turns off, just turn it back on again. All right, there we go. So we're booting back up into the PS3. Okay, and then we'll go back into the internet browser again, which will take us to our blank page. And because we rebooted the PS3, we're going to have to clear all of our cookies and website data again. So we're going to press triangle and go to Tools, and then go down to Delete Cookies, yes. And then again, Tools, Delete Search History, yes. And then Tools, Delete Cache, yes. And then Tools and Delete Authentication Information, select yes as well. Okay, so once we've done that, we can close the browser again, reopen it again, and that will get the browser running as lightweight as possible. So for running the tool set, and then we'll press triangle and go to our bookmarks, my bookmarks, and load the PS3 toolset from the bookmarks. Okay, so once again, we're just waiting for this to load up successfully. Okay, there we go. Exploit initialization complete. Click OK. And what you'll notice this time is under custom syscalls, it used to say no, but now it says CFW for custom firmware, which means we can install our custom firmware. But before we do that, we do want to make sure that it was flashed and patched successfully. So in order to do that, we're going to go back to the system manager again. And then of course, we're going to go back to flash memory and save flash memory backup, just like we did at the start. We're going to do this again, this time with the patched flash here. So we're backing up the patched flash. Last time we backed up the pre-patched flash. Now we're backing up the patched flash. It's good to have a backup of both, and we want to check the patched flash to make sure that it was successful. As it flashed up right there, it says you should check in PS3 tools. So we're going to close that now and switch back over to the computer, plug in the USB drive again back into your computer. Okay, so back onto the computer, we'll take our original dump and we will, do _orig for original, just rename it. So we have our original dump, our pre-patched dump, and then we're going to go to our USB drive right here. We've got our dump.hex. We're going to copy that over to our desktop. And you know what? I will rename this to dump _patched, as this is our patch dump. And then we're going to open up PS3 tools again, go back into PS3 checker, drag the dump _patched inside, and then drag it on top of the drag and drop your dump here.bat to check this one. And as you can see, number of dangers 0, number of warnings 0. So we are good to go. So we have successfully patched our flash correctly without any errors. So we are all set. So you can back these up somewhere, put them in a folder called like PS3 flash backup or something. And just keep these on your computer somewhere safe so that if you ever need them, in case you ever corrupt the flash in future with your jailbroken PS3, you have these backed up that you can restore. Just in case anything like that ever happens, it's always good to have them backed up. Okay, so now we can get to installing the custom firmware here. So firstly, what we want to do is head back to the USB drive once more. So we'll go to our USB drive here. We can now delete these two files now that we have the flash backed up. And we're going to create some folders here on the root of the USB drive. So not inside any existing folders. In the root of the drive, you want to right click and create a new folder called PS3 in uppercase characters. And then inside that folder, you want to create another folder called update, which is also in uppercase characters. And then in that folder, we're going to extract the custom firmware here. So we're going to open that up in 7-zip. And we're going to, oh, well, I guess it already has the PS3 update folder. But anyway, we're going to extract the PS3 updat.pup file into the update folder here that we just created. And we now have it copied. Now, what you want to do is make sure that you go to View in your File Explorer and make sure File Name Extensions is ticked, as well as Hidden Items being ticked as well. You just want to make sure that that file name is correct. It should be PS3 updat.pup. If it's anything else, then you'll have to rename it to PS3 updat.pup, exactly as it is here. So now that we've done that, the last thing we need to do is verify the MD5 hash of this custom firmware file, just to make sure it hasn't been corrupted, because the last thing you want to do is install some corrupted update that breaks the system. So we want to make sure that it is good. That's why we got MD5 checker. So we're just going to open up MD5 checker and we'll extract it here to our desktop. And then we're just going to run the program and drag in our PS3 updat.pup file for the custom firmware. And then that will give us the MD5 hash right here. So you can see 14cc1e, and then, it ends in 5cf. And then we just want to compare that to the version that's in PSX place, the hash that's in here, and you can see it is the same, 14cc1e, and it ends in 5cf. So you can see it is the same MD5 hash, which means that our custom firmware file is not corrupted. Okay, so we're good. So now we can just eject the drive and plug it back into the PS3. Okay, so back on the PS3, we do not need to use the BG toolset anymore. So we can exit out of that. We can close out of the browser. And now we can head over to settings and do the system update. So again, you want to make sure that the USB drive is plugged into the rightmost USB port. and preferably don't have any other USB devices plugged into the PS3 while you're doing this. And we're going to go down to update via storage media. Now, if this does not pop up, just to be clear, if you run into an error where it says it cannot find the update on the USB drive, don't worry about it. I'll show you another method of installing the update from the USB. So if you get any errors during this process, just stick with me here because I'll show you another way of doing it. So if this does work though, then just click OK and then accept the user agreement. And we're just going to turn off system automatically after update. Nope, we don't want to do that. We're just going to start the update. And again, if you did run into any error during this process, again, I will show you another method of doing it. I'll show you another way of updating the system that should minimize errors. So we're back after the update and we now have the custom firmware installed. So if you ran into any errors at all while trying to do the update and you weren't able to update the system software through the home screen, then there's another way to do it where you will be less likely to run into any errors. So I'll show you guys how to do it that way as well. So what you want to do is just turn off your PS3, and then you want to turn on the PS3 by holding down the power button and keep the power button held down until it beeps twice in rapid succession. So if it doesn't do that and it just turns back on, just repeat the process. Turn it off again and then hold down the power button to turn it back on. Keep it held down till it beeps twice like this. Okay, so when you do that, you should get this message here on screen. So you need to connect your PS3 controller to the PS3 with the USB charge cable, and then press the PS button on the controller. From here, you want to go down to System Update, option number 6, System Update, and select that option. And then it will say 4.89 or later. So press Start and Select at the same time. Press both those buttons down at the same time. Okay, and you can see here it's preparing to update. Now again, you want to make sure that the USB drive is plugged into the rightmost USB port on the PS3, on the front of the PS3, preferably, and make sure there's no other USB devices plugged into the PS3 at this time, apart from the charge cable, obviously, for the PS3 controller. Okay, so now it's saying PS3 system software 4.89 Evil NAT. So we're going to press the PS button. Okay, and now we get the same user agreement we got before, so we'll just accept it and press X to start. And now it's starting to update the system from this safe mode or recovery mode that we're currently in. Okay, and you can tell that you're on custom firmware when you see that Evil NAT showing up instead of PS3 when it boots up. And we can select user 1. When you go to game, you'll have the package manager down here at the bottom. So you can now install Homebrew. So let's do a little quick test here and install some Homebrew on the system, just as a little example. So in order to get Homebrew, if we switch back over here to our computer. So if we switch back over to the computer here, to get Homebrew, you want to go to Brewology, and then you've got Homebrew here. So I typically recommend installing Multiman first of all, which is a really handy utility. So if we go to Multiman, so when you're downloading Homebrew for custom firmware PS3s, you want to avoid the one that says hen, because that's for the other exploit, the hen exploit. So you want to go for the main version here. Even though this says it's for version 4.85, most of the time it will still work on the latest firmware as well. So we can just download this version. It should be fine. So we're going to download that. I would also recommend downloading the Apollo save tool as well, because it has a handy online activation feature. So we can download that as well. Okay, so I've got these two package files here downloaded. Don't worry about the icon. That's for another program for the PS4. But you can see I've got the two package files downloaded. So all we can do is just pop that on the USB drive. Just pop it on the root of the USB drive here. We can delete this PS3 folder that has the custom firmware in it, since we have the firmware installed. So we can copy those packages to the USB, eject the USB drive, and plug it into the PS3. So if we go back to the PS3, we go back to the package manager. We can then go to install package files, and then we can go down to install from root of your storage device, which is the USB. And you can see the package files showing up here. So we can install our Apollo save tool. And there we go, that's installed. And then we can also install our Multiman, which is a much bigger application. So it takes a bit longer here to install that. But there you go. You can see they installed no problem. Let's run the Apollo save tool. And I'll just show you the offline activation option in here. So there we go, successfully installed application data. And then from here, we can go to user backup and activate PS3 account. And activate PS3 account right there, and that will activate it. System is now activated. System reboot might be required. So you can do that to activate an offline account on the PS3. We can now quit game, and let's load up Multiman as well. Okay, and now we can load Multiman. Multiman is with you for almost 10 years. Please support with a small donation. Well, there you go. Donate to Multiman. So there we go, installing MMCM data to internal HDD. And there we go, as you can see, Multiman is loading up successfully. You do have to, oh no, you don't have to agree to all the information. Well, that's good. Well, anyway, as you can see here, we have Multiman up and running. So if you want to learn how to use these Homebrew applications, then check out my full tutorial series. I have a whole PS3 jailbreak tutorial series that goes into detail on how to install Multiman and Webman mod and set up FTP and many other things, installing PS3 games, DLC and updates, installing PS1 and PS2 games and emulators like RetroArch, getting online with your PS3, and many other things are all covered in that series. So I'll have the playlist link down in the video description. So check that playlist out if you want to learn how to take full advantage of your jailbroken PS3. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe, and I'll hopefully see you guys in the next video.